Hey, everybody. Fascinating chat today. As we know, costs are too darn high, and especially in telecom. And we're going to tackle that topic today with an industry innovator in telecom expense management. FinOps is, of course, all the rage. Chris, how are you?
Doing great, thank you.
Well, thanks for being here. Really intrigued by you and your mission at Tango.
Mhm.
Before that, maybe introduce yourself, your role in the company, and what's the big idea behind Tango helping businesses manage their technology expenses?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's Tango is, as you mentioned, telecom expense management. That's really our roots, right? We're one of the original pioneers in what's known as TEM. I always kind of say that the T's changed over the years. It's now technology or IT expense management, but our roots are in that. But overall, we've been, providing services to customers covering telecom. We've evolved into mobility and the full managed mobility services lifecycle. And as you can imagine, with the growth of cloud, we now have offerings in cloud against infrastructure as a service as well as software as a service. And so we support everything from asset management, driving innovation through automation of expense management and things like that. I think one of the exciting things about that is kind of our history, right? Where, as I mentioned, we're one of the pioneers, and this is 2025. We're actually celebrating our 25th anniversary this year, so pretty amazing
Wow.
for a tech company to be around after 25 years. So,
Well, it's been
um,
a challenge for enterprises for decades, hence
yes,
your
yes.
uh, value proposition. And what in a modern IT environment, what are the biggest challenges when it comes
Yeah,
to costs?
yeah, it's really everything around gaining visibility around their costs, around obviously telecom expenses and the overages and the unexpected charges that come with that, to underutilization and mobile, to then, as you can imagine, the growth of cloud. The cost of cloud keeps rising. We'll talk here around generative AI. While it's a transformative technology in the industry, it is leading to significant rises in expenses across the tech landscape for IT leaders, and making their budgets challenging to support overall. So,
Yeah, huge challenge. You actually, to address that, released your annual report on IT expense management trends,
yeah.
savings recommendations. Give us a synopsis of the report and what were some of the key, findings, insights, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, you think about Tango, 25 years in the industry. We have a lot of, experience. We've seen a lot in this. We have over 34 billion in IT spend under management. So,
Wow.
from my perspective, that gives us a pretty unique position, right, to understand that we've seen what are the real drivers of IT costs, right? And, from telecom to what I talked about on mobility, around a lot of underutilization of mobility and different policies causing, runaway expenses, to, all the different facets of cloud, right? Whether it's infrastructure as a service and the different ways of consumption, to software as a service as well. So, for us, it's looking at that across everything from mobile to cloud and telecom. And so the report itself is not high level, right? It's packed with data insights across there. We've got, we're a software and a services company, right? Very high touch experience we provide customers. So we're not just providing them software to say, hey, here's your expenses, here's what you can do. We're actually helping with the recommendations. So a lot of those are packed into the report. We've got real world saving strategies that are in there as well, to kind of help customers and IT leaders make smarter investments in 2025 and beyond.
Oh, great proposition. So, of
Mhm.
course, everyone's moving to the cloud or has moved to the cloud, and
Right.
most enterprises are multi-cloud, actually.
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
cloud sprawl has become a huge
Mhm.
challenge. I mean, what are the sort of practical steps to optimize cloud spend strategies and maintenance?
Yeah, I mean, I think you touched on it earlier. I think one of the first things as an organization is getting a grasp on it in terms of getting the organizations together. We talked on FinOps, right? The inform, the optimize, the operate phases of that. You've got to really bring the organizations together, from the fin side of it, the financial side of it, and the operation side of it, to build a cloud cost optimization framework. You think about it, the companies have to get comfortable around measuring cloud ROI, right? You've got to be able to understand what is that usage costing you? How do I allocate that back to the right projects or the team? What are the chargebacks that need to occur with that? That's that level of maturity they need to gain. And I would say what's putting pressure on that is the increasing adoption of generative AI. Some studies that we've provided have shown that there was a 30% increase in cloud costs year over year due to generative AI, right? Leaving, IT leaders with, a challenge of they have very little control over their IT expense when it comes to cloud. So they've got to get in front of that. I think embracing FinOps is one of the first steps, any company can take.
Got it. And of course, the public cloud providers are battling each other, which is great
Yes.
for consumers of cloud. But it's still complicated. The contracts, the T's and C's are complicated.
Right.
They're looking to lock in customers, which has pros and cons. How do you see that playing out?
Well, I think one of the first steps is first and foremost is finding where the workload should go, right? Obviously, there's been this boom for many, many years of a cloud first strategy or cloud only strategy. I think people have dialed that back now to say, I think it's more of a hybrid strategy. And where is the best placement for the workload, both from a performance perspective, from a cost perspective, and from an experience perspective. So one that gives more leverage in terms of how you're choosing the best hyperscale versus just going all in and losing some of that leverage on that. We talk a lot around repatriation these days. That's kind of a buzzy term out there. And I think that is happening for the right workloads. It doesn't mean public cloud growth isn't out there, but you've got to make sure you're choosing the right cost profile and the right performance profile for workloads. But all of that is leading to kind of the original point you mentioned is cloud inflation overall, we think is generally stabilized, right? So, the rising costs of generative AI, the public cloud providers wanting those workloads to go in their environments is putting more competition out there among the hyperscalers. And I would say the maturity of all the hyperscalers is getting closer, day after day, year after year. So it gives organizations a better opportunity to kind of secure better terms, but because they're informed on where the workloads are going versus saying all the workloads are going here, and then they lead to things we see where they have spend that they have to consume because they're committed to it, and maybe they don't have enough infrastructure to move there. So they have a better informed path going into those negotiations to lock in agreements, better terms, better pricing overall.
Fantastic. Let's switch to mobile. Every organization is mobile first mostly these days, and
Right.
luckily we're not in the days of minutes, of buckets of
Right.
usage, and
Right.
all of that craziness. But there's still a lot of waste. Where do you start there when it comes to a
Well,
mobile budget?
yeah, absolutely. I think we talked a little bit earlier on this, right? Is underutilization is in a broad category, I think is some of the low-hanging fruit, right? It's a significant budget drain, and I think a lot of it comes down to visibility, right? A lot of them have a BYOD policy plus a corporate liable policy or strategy, and so they have a difficult time understanding what is the total mobile landscape, how many underutilized devices do I have, how many inactive lines should I have, or onboarding, offboarding of employees. There's a lot of waste there. So the most immediate action up front when you look at this is performing that comprehensive inventory and usage audit, right? They've got to identify those unused or unutilized devices, as I mentioned. They've got to deactivate those lines. They've got to repossess unneeded hardware. And again, that goes back to visibility into usage is absolutely critical in this.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So quite a bit controversial. You predicted the end of BYOD and its decline, and I
Yeah.
found that a little surprising. What's behind that? What's driving that shift?
Well, I think a lot of that comes down to, BYOD, boomed with the remote workforce a bit and those kind of things with all of the shifts in our world overall. But the challenges we see and what we see from customers in their shift is the hidden costs, the security vulnerabilities, and some of the productivity losses of understanding everything around that for the IT teams overall, because, corporate liable in its nature provides greater control over the mobile security. It reduces something that's becoming more and more prevalent, which is cybersecurity risk on the device. The amount of corporate, data sitting on devices these days is obviously at an all-time high. And so you can protect a lot of those costs in the long term. So while BYOD is certainly a strategy, it's still out there and is going to continue to exist. We see more and more companies moving to corporate liable policies because of the risks associated with the alternative. And just to give you kind of a quick perspective, the average cost of a data breach in 2024 was around, just under 5 million. So you think about it, one of those occurs, unfortunately, that can far outweigh the investment you have to put into around providing corporate devices.
Yeah, that's kind of shocking to hear. There's a big new X factor as well in communications technology, and that's satellite broadband, not just cellular, but broadband access, and not just Starlink, but new entrants in this space. What are your customers telling you about the role satellite might play in 2025 in their spending?
Right, we're seeing more and more interest for it. The direct to cell is, that's expected to go mainstream, right? I think a lot of the advantages are, obvious, right? You think about the natural disaster, the unfortunate natural disasters that have recently occurred. Those kind of things are critical in those kind of events. It can improve reliability, typical dead zone. But I think it has to apply to the right portions of the workforce, right? I don't think this is a wholesale swap out, because that's a significant investment. But for the right companies with the right workloads and right workforce, I think these giving much broader access to connectivity for certain types of situations, we're seeing more and more demand for that. And obviously, you're seeing the mobile device providers modernizing their hardware to support this more and more, and make that available, and obviously more affordable across the board as well. So we're going to see it. I still think 2025 is a year of earlier adoption on that, as device refreshes come through, and more of the coverage and capabilities, mature through the year.
Yeah, really interesting to watch. And I guess the big point on emerging technologies, so many new SaaS apps and Gen AI powered tools.
Right.
My little business, my CFO is always asking, well, what's this for? What's that for? I probably got 10 different subscriptions at any given time.
Right.
Any advice for managing through all of that and, not getting out of control on AI spend and others emerging technologies?
Well, I think it's funny, AI has driven this boom in spend, but you really need AI to manage a lot of that cost at the same time. You think about the data that comes down from any of the providers, whether it's a telecom, a mobile provider, or especially in cloud, where, the expense line item sheets and the downloads from the billing applications it's an insurmountable amount of data to manage through. So you have to take advantage of the AI-driven kind of cloud cost management tools that are out there. Any tool that can ingest a ton of data and give you the optimization, the insights around it. Obviously leveraging the best practices of FinOps embedded with that, with cost management tools, especially in cloud, is going to be key. And again, I go back to proactive, right? Being proactive around the management of that is key, because if you get those costs under control, then you can use that spend to go use it for innovation instead of just trying to keep your budget afloat overall. So, the Gen AI boom and the cost increases of that are where we're at right now, and you've got to get those in line. But the next step is going to be something like quantum computing, and that's going to have the potential to multiply costs even further. So again, it's all about the prep, the visibility, the proactive nature around it, is where I think you have to go, and then having the right set of tools that can discover that and be a partner with you is a huge help too.
Fantastic. Well, you have a busy year ahead of you. We're well into 2025. What are you excited about the next few months? Any travel or new initiatives you're deeply focused on?
Really, as I've talked on it a bit, we've got a lot of things we're focused on, continuing to increase our presence in the FinOps community, becoming one of the premier, providers and partners in there is one of the things we're very excited about there, and continuing to communicate within that ecosystem is probably an area we're most excited about in terms of the opportunity and growth in that side of the industry.
Brilliant. Well, onwards and upwards, or downwards in terms of cost. But yeah, congratulations on all the success, and look forward to keeping in touch.
Great. No, I enjoyed it very much. Thank you
Thanks
very
so much,
much,
Chris. And thanks everyone for listening and watching. Take care.